What's up, guys? It's me. Welcome back to my channel. And what better way to celebrate being back than with some mobster magic? That's right. Today we're going to be talking about Michael Corleone, the man who went from a war hero to a mafia don. And I'm not just going to be talking about his rise to power either. No. We've re-gone. Not be talking about one very specific moment in the film that changed everything for him. If you haven't seen The Godfather, then I'm about to spoil it for you. So if you want to avoid that, then click off this video right now. But if you have seen the movie or you don't care about spoilers, then let's get into it. So the year is 1945, and World War II has just come to an end. America has won. Everyone is celebrating. And a young U.S. Army captain by the name of Michael Corleone is returning home to New York City. His father, Vito Corleone, is one of the most powerful mobsters in the country. And he's so powerful that the police basically leave him alone. Like there was an attempted assassination attempt on Vito's life. But they did and even try to find the guy who did it because they knew who did it. It was the rival crime family. But the cops didn't do anything about it because they had enough problems trying to deal with the Corleones. Now, before going back to Italy, Michael made it clear to his father that he wants out of the family business. He wants nothing to do with crime. He doesn't want to be involved with his father's affairs. He wants to live a normal life. He wants to start a business with his brother Fredo. Open up a restaurant. So when Vito is nearly killed, Michael doesn't take it upon himself to find out who did it or to protect his father. No, he goes to see a girl. He spends time with her and he forgets about his family's problems. In fact, he doesn't even bother showing up to his father's hospital bedside. He's too busy having fun. But later on, when Michael does finally show up at his father's bedside, he starts planning revenge. He finds out who was behind the hit and he takes them out. At first, this makes his father very angry. He tells Michael that he's officially made a choice here. You can't go back. You can't undo what you've done. You're now a member of this family, whether you like it or not. So what was the lesson that Michael learned here? Well, to put it simply, he learned that once you step into the arena, there's no turning back. Some of you might be thinking, what the hell does that mean? What arena? Well, the arena, of course, is metaphor. It represents the world that Michael stepped into when he took out those men. Once he chose violence, once he chose to defend his father's honor, he couldn't go back to the innocent life he once lived. He was now a Corleone, and that meant he was a mafia captain. But more importantly, this scene taught Michael something much more valuable. It taught him about power. Up until this point, Michael had been living a sheltered life. He didn't know what it was like to be feared. He didn't know what it was like to hold power over other people. But when he went to the hospital and saw his father lying in a bed, helpless and afraid, something inside of him snapped. He realized that if he didn't do something, nobody would. And so he took action, became a one-man army, and hunted down the people who were responsible for his father's pain. And when he did this, he discovered a side of himself that he never knew existed. He discovered that he liked having power, liked being feared. He liked being the guy who was in control. You see, when Vito was in the hospital, he was vulnerable. He was scared. He was asking himself who he could trust. And Michael showed up and said, "Don't worry, Dad, I got this. I will take care of everything." And in that moment, Vito knew that his son had officially become a man. He knew that Michael wasn't the little boy who wanted to be a businessman anymore. No, he was now a soldier. Soldiers don't get to choose their battles. They simply follow orders. And in the world of organized crime, there are no second chances. Once you make a choice, you have to live with the consequences for the rest of your life. The next morning, Michael goes to see his father again, and he tells him that he's leaving. Tells him that he's going back to war, that he's going to finish his duty, and then he'll come back home. But Vito tells him to stay. He tells him that he needs his help, that he needs someone to take care of things while he's gone. And in that moment, Michael realizes that his father is right. He can't run away from his problems anymore. He has to face them head on. He has to become a leader. So he stays in New York and starts taking care of his father's business. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Wait a minute, didn't Michael want to get out of the family business? Well, yes, he did. But sometimes you don't get to choose the cards you're dealt in life. Sometimes fate has a way of forcing you into situations that you never would have chosen for yourself. And this is exactly what happened to Michael. He thought he could escape his destiny by joining the army, but he soon realized that he couldn't run away from his problems forever. He had to face them eventually. When he did, he discovered that he was more than capable of handling them. In fact, he was better at handling them than his father was. The problem was that Michael wasn't supposed to discover these skills. His father was supposed to pass them down to him, but Vito couldn't do that because he was already dead. Michael had to learn everything on his own, through trial and error. And that's the second lesson that we need to learn here. Sometimes you have to lose everything before you realize what's important in life. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you're willing to change. And this is exactly what happened to Michael. He spent years trying to escape his family's legacy, but he couldn't do that. He had to return to the only world he knew. And when he did, he found that it wasn't as bad as he remembered. In fact, it was kind of exciting. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There was still a lot of danger and a lot of violence. But Michael was able to see it in a different light. He was able to appreciate it in a way that his father never could have imagined. When Vito took over the family business, he was young and hungry. He wanted to prove himself to his father. He wanted to make a name for himself in the Mafia. But Michael was different. He didn't care about making a name for himself. He didn't care about impressing anyone. He just wanted to survive. That's why he was able to succeed where his father failed. He was able to keep the family together. He was able to expand the business. He was able to make more money than his father ever dreamed of. All of this because he had nothing to lose. Look, I'm not saying that you have to lose everything to become successful. What I am saying is that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you're willing to make changes in your life. Sometimes you have to lose everything before you realize what's important. And in Michael's case, that meant losing his innocence. He had to see the worst parts of human nature before he realized how strong he really was. We all have the potential to be great, but most of us will never realize that potential because we're too comfortable with our lives. We're too afraid to take risks. We're too afraid to fail. But if you're willing to put yourself out there, if you're willing to take the punches and keep moving forward, then you can achieve anything you want in life. Just remember that sometimes you have to lose everything before you realize what's important. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you're willing to change. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to see more content like this, then subscribe. And as always, remember John shot first.